Well, this video might be a bit controversial. Women in anime are generally not that well written. For the most part, they tend to just exist as an accessory to the male lead, or even worse in some cases, they're just a pair of knockers. But in the newest generation of anime, there have been a few shows that have bucked this standard, and Attack on Titan is one of them. Attack on Titan features a small cast of female characters. They are vastly outnumbered by the number of male characters in the show, but for the most part they're still central to the plot and independent. Much like last time, there are a few different characters I want to talk about before we determine who the best is. The first character I want to talk about is the subscribe button. The subscribe button is undoubtedly the most important character of this channel. And I know what you're thinking, I'm the most important character. No. This channel would not be what it is without the subscribe button. So please make sure you're subscribed. Please. Alright, the next character that I want to talk about is one I've already talked about previously, which is Pieck. I really do think that she's one of the most interesting characters in Attack on Titan. She is so smart and extremely quick thinking, and her pragmatic nature has come in handy multiple times. She was able to use the Cart Titan's mobility and adaptability very well, as we can see in the War for Paradise, the raid on Marley, and even the Rumbling. The only part of her character that is weak in any way is her backstory. Really, the only backstory we get on her is about her father, and why she became a warrior in the first place. Overall, I think she's a dynamic and independent character, and I definitely think she's one of the best of the series. Alright, next I want to talk about Ymir. And not the one from 2,000 years ago. I'm talking Ymir. I think Ymir is a contender for having the saddest backstory in Attack on Titan, which is really saying something for Attack on Titan. Like, this is a show where so many people are dead and so much sad stuff happens. And somehow her backstory is still just as sad, if not sadder. Getting swept up off the streets and taken into a cult to be made the god. And considering that a good part of your life, that's crazy. That the best part of your life is when you were abducted into a cult, and then shortly after you get turned into a Titan. Her whole life, she lives for other people. Even when she gets a second chance after eating Marcel, she still decides to help Historia. And that was after she said she would only live for herself. She still lived for someone else. And obviously, their relationship is a lot more healthy than being a member of a cult. But it's still so interesting that she can't be selfish even when she wants to be. Even in the end, even when knowing she'll end up dead, she still returns to the outside world for the sake of Historia. As I said earlier, she has one of the saddest backstories of Attack on Titan, but I think her actual story as well is quite sad. Maybe not the saddest, but top 5. All in all, I definitely think they're an interesting character. The only major flaw that her character has is that she's not important until she's needed, She was around the entirety of season 1 and she had maybe 3 lines, She was definitely a background character. And it just feels like she was kind of shoved into the limelight for season 2. I would have liked if we could have gotten more of her in season 1, just so we're a little bit more familiar with her, but it's not a huge deal. Alright, the next character I want to talk about is Mikasa. Mikasa is a interesting case. She's probably the single most important woman in this story, but she's also one of the least independent, especially in the anime. In fact, there are a lot of fans that even consider her not being a well-written character, but I think she's written fine. Maybe not amazing, but because she's such an important character, I feel like I have to talk about her. She's just so badass. She can take down almost any opponent in the show, literally has superhuman strength, and is downright scary at times. Seriously, who can carry this much stuff at once? It's absurd. She had so much potential to be a phenomenally written character, but the decision by Wit to dumb her down to a more one-dimensional character was a definite misstep. It has some pretty obvious negative effects on her character in the long run, but I think the changes Mappa made in season 4 definitely improved her character overall. It seems like the further away from Eren she is, the more interesting her character becomes. We get to see a lot more of her interactions with Armin as well as the rest of the scouts, and I think it gives us some good perspective on what she would be like without him. We can see that she does care for them, despite how few times we've seen that before this. Things like sitting by Sasha's grave and protecting Armin from the explosion don't feel like things we would have seen in the first 3 seasons. And she's such an important character too. The entire series hinges on her. Like, if she had just said something different at the end of 123, the entire rest of the story would have been different. That's how important she is to the show. Another character that's extremely important to the show is Historia, and I think she's pretty well written. She also has a pretty sad backstory, but in a way that's different from most people. Most people just have like dead parents or something along that line, but Historia has a pretty abusive background, which is unusual for Attack on Titan because, you know, their parents are dead already. She has a lot of development over seasons 2 and 3, and her parallels to Ymir are quite interesting, especially considering they're fairly different characters. Like the fact they had to live a large portion of their life not being who they were, and then choosing to fulfill a role even when they had the freedom to choose. It's just a very interesting parallel that I didn't really even notice until making this video. Alright, the last character I want to talk about is the reason this video could be controversial. Gabi. I think Gabi is one of the best written characters in Attack on Titan. She may not be that important to the plot, but she has so much development. Watching her Marleyan nationalism just kind of fade over the course of season 4 is so interesting to watch. And she only gets better in the manga, when she realizes that Marley never cared about her or any of the other Eldians as anything other than a tool for war. Is such a unique and almost satisfying moment in the series. She starts out as a bratty child, but becomes a much more developed character right before our very eyes. She also has a very important role in the campfire scene, even if it's very small. It's a moment of vulnerability that we get to see, which isn't super common from her. Seeing that she is a caring person deep down, instead of this like sassy, overconfident, almost arrogant person. Watching her development over season 4 is so fascinating. And I know a lot of people don't like her because, you know, she killed Sasha, but if we're being real, the most important thing Sasha did in this show was get killed by Gabi. I know that's a crazy thing to say, but like, just think about it for a second. The time that Gabi spent with Sasha's family was critical for her development. All in all, I would definitely say she's one of the most interesting characters to watch develop in Attack on Titan. It's hard to say if she's necessarily the best written. I personally think that might be Ymir, but my favorite female character is definitely Pieck. Anyway, let me know who your favorite Attack on Titan character is in the comments down below. Don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see you next time.